to the Skeinyx Knitcast. My name is Chelsea. I am coming to you from Saratoga Springs, Utah. You can find me on Ravelry as Skeinyx, Skeinyx, and on Instagram as Skeinyx Knitcast, and I will also put that somewhere on the screen, as it's my first episode. I haven't decided where yet, but it'll get there. Alright, let me tell you a little bit about myself. So I am a high school teacher by day and a knitter by night. I also crochet a little bit and spin even less, but I do spin a little bit. I picked up knitting because when my kids were small, let's see, my son was probably about 2 and my daughter was just a couple months old, I felt like they were taking a lot of my time, as far as I could not do what I loved at the time, which was reading. I needed something that I could do to keep my hands busy where I could still watch my kids. So my mom invited me to a knit night with some of her friends, and they got me set up with some sugar and cream yarn and some straight needles, and here's how you cast on and do this, and here's how you yarn over, and here's just knit across, yarn over. I want to say there's a pattern, Granny's Favorite washcloth, or something like that. I'll see if I can find it. If I can, I will put in a picture here. So that was my very first project, and then I thought, well, that was fun. I really liked that. Let's knit socks. Good. Let's jump from a washcloth to socks. Who's crazy? I am. Anyway, so then I knit a pair of socks. I knit them on a size 2. I knit them out of wool-free sock, I think. It's blue. On 72 stitches. They would have been gigantic for my feet. My husband actually tried them on and he stole them. So I didn't even get to wear my first pair of socks that I made. And then I kind of worked on a few things here or there. I think my first pair of socks took me probably 3 or 4 months to knit. I restarted them 4 or 5 times because I kept twisting my knit stitches. But I just kind of kept at it and kept working, and then I made a couple of hats and some scarves, and unfortunately most of those don't exist anymore. One of the hats and this ridiculously large scarf that I made for my husband, it was 100 stitches in knit 2 purl 2, and it was probably like this long, double this size. It was huge. I think I used like 3 or 4 skeins of yarn. Anyway, it got peed on by the cats and we threw it in the washer, and I forgot that it was wool and that wool felts. So it felted and no longer fit or even fit my kids, so it went bye-bye. Anyway, so I just kind of knit off and on as something to keep my hands busy while I was with my kids. I would say that I really became a knitter and wanted to become a part of this community last January. I did a couple of crazy things last January. I knit my first stuffy. I crocheted my first stuffy. I joined a mystery knit along for a shawl, which I had never knit before. And I decided that I was going to knit 1 pair of socks for myself every month. Oh, and I started a Cozy Memories blanket. So, needless to say, I went a little knit crazy. I also discovered podcasts. So, it's taken me a year, but here I am to share with all of you. Anyway, so that's a little bit about me, kind of how I started knitting. Again, I really consider myself a knitter now that I have kind of branched out and really challenged myself to do new things. Last year I considered my year of firsts. I had my first surgery, my first broken bone, and a ton of knitting firsts and a few other firsts too that I'm forgetting at the moment. But I knit like my first garment, I did my first patterned sock, I knit my first shawl. I did my first knit along. I did, again, those two stuffies, so my first stuffies. And really, I did a colorwork hat. I created my own mitten pattern and did a colorwork mitten for my mother-in-law. I will probably at the end, I will go through and put in just a little quick slideshow of my firsts projects from last year. Anyway, so this to me is the natural progression of becoming more involved in this community. I haven't been super active on Ravelry. Oh, I joined Ravelry last year too for the first time. People had kind of told me about Ravelry and I just said, but I have to have an account and I don't think I knit that well and I don't crochet that well, and I'll just keep finding, you know, patterns wherever I can and I won't worry about it. And then last year I joined Ravelry and went, oh my gosh, what have I been doing? So anyway. Okay, so I wanted to explain my name just a little bit. Skeinyx, so obviously skein of yarn, and then Nyx is the goddess of the night. So I combine them into one word, Skeinyx. I did mention that I am a teacher by day and a knitter by night, which kind of goes with the name. I really like Greek mythology and studying it and all the different aspects of the gods and goddesses and kind of their roles in society back then. It's just one of the geeky things about me that you will discover as you watch. I actually only have one finished object to show you. This was the mystery knit along shawl that I did for this January. The My Sister Shawl by Coziest Designs. And it is a 3-color shawl. And it is gigantic. I have not blocked this or, as you can see, woven in my ends. Oh, in fact, I am showing you the back. Let's try that again. So it's a parallelogram shape. It's kind of hard to see. Again, I haven't blocked it. It has this lovely lace section and some big eyelets. They're double yarn over eyelets here. See if I can, you can kind of see those. There we go. And then lace with a broken seed. And then it repeats itself on the other side. I have heard from Knitting with this Cozy Up with the Stitch and Sisters on their podcast that a lot of people were running out of yarn. I actually ended up with quite a bit of yarn left over. This was the green that I used. This is Dogstar Knits in the Lucky Jenny colorway. It's a 75-25. And it's just beautiful, and I am so excited to have so much of this left over to use. I have about 25 grams of this one left over, or 20 grams. I have 20 grams of this one left over. But I haven't put any in my Cozy Memories blanket yet, so I still gotta do that. Then the speckle that I used, so the pattern calls for 2 solids or tonals and 1 variegated or speckled colorway. So my variegated speckled colorway is Knitted Wit. This is an 80-20 blend, again fingering weight. And the colorway is Sassy Santa. With the pinks and greens, I kind of felt this was more springy. Especially when I paired it with the brown, the rich brown that makes me think of garden dirt and the green. So although it's a Christmas colorway, I really enjoyed putting it in this shawl that in the middle of winter made me think of spring. And I have about 25 grams of that one left over. And then my last one, this wonky cake here, this is a 100% merino singles base from Knit Picks. It's their Preciosa line. They actually discontinued this color. It's called Sasquatch, but it's just kind of this rich, earthy brown color that I really love, and it's so soft. And it has, you could kind of see it, but it has this beautiful kind of halo to it. So as I am delving more into knitting, I did find that my shawl feels very different depending on which yarn, because I have a 75-25, an 80-20, and then a single space. I think it would be a much different shawl if it had all been in one style of yarn, so all singles or all the 80-20 or all the 75-25. But again, I'm trying to stash dive a little bit more, trying not to buy a ton of yarn this year. I'm actually putting all of my stash into a spreadsheet to so that I really know what I have, and instead of kind of stockpiling it, I'm trying to pare down my stash, especially because I have been given a large supply of yarn, which again, I will talk about that more a little bit later in the episode. So moving right along to whips. I have 3 whips that I'm going to show you, not including Scrappy Projects, because we all know those are very long term, and we'll see, because I don't know how long it's going to last. So my first project, let me pull this out, is a sock that I am knitting for my husband. This is Picks Felici. It was bare. This is hand dyed by me, kind of, I guess my second real attempt at dyeing. So last year I bought, I guess I dabble in dyeing too, forgot to mention that. So last year I bought 3 skeins. I bought a skein of Quince & Co, and I bought a bulky yarn, and I bought, so I bought a skein of Quince & Co, a bulky yarn, and another fingering weight yarn. And I wound them into what I considered mini skeins. I wrapped them around a chair that was approximately a yard, I don't know, 15 times or so, and made little mini skeins, and then I kind of played with some hand dyeing. I was using RIT dyes at the time, which I found out you cannot do beautiful speckled yarns and things with. I was very disappointed. So I did some hand painting and just kind of played around a little bit. And then I ordered a kit of jacquard dyes off of Knit Picks to try and play a little more with color. And then my husband said, you know, I really need a new pair of socks. I have lost one of my socks and the other ones are wool, and since it hasn't been super cold, I haven't really been wearing them. Could you knit me another pair of socks? And I said, great, sure, I have all this yarn. What color do you want? Well, I'd really like some green. Well, green is probably the only color I don't have, except I do have, I think it's Spring Blossom in Felici, so it's green and pink, which he would not wear. So I said, okay, well, I have this bare yarn, let's dye it up a skein. You know, what kind of color do you want? And he said he wanted green. So I mixed up this green and I put it in, and he was like, that's a little blue. Could we add some, you know, could we make it a different color? So I added more yellow to the top and kind of stirred it a little bit, but not quite enough. Anyway, he's very pleased with the color. It came out really well. So I am knitting, it's just a vanilla sock. I'm knitting it on US 1.5s, 2.5 millimeter needles. These are from Knit Picks. This is a 24-inch, and I'm doing magic loop, which I have decided after doing this that unless I'm doing 2 at a time, I really don't like magic looping socks. I do not. So I cast on 12 stitches for the toe, went up to 68, did 68 for the whole foot. I used a Fish Lips Kiss heel, and then I knit about 20 rows, and then I am doing a 3x1 rib for the rest of the foot. And I will make these about as long as the foot is. So if I pulled this over, I still have quite a bit to do, but I'll make it about to the end of the toe. And then I have on here to keep me company, my cute little fox stitch marker from Sugar Tots. This was a surprise marker that came with a skein of yarn. It was a mystery kit for the winter. And then here is This is the ball of yarn for the dyed color. Interestingly enough, it turned out very similar to Lucky Jenny. That's not what I was going for, but very similar. Although I have more white in mine than is in this. Of course, they're a professional, and I just play around. So that's my work in progress. This is the first sock, so he keeps bugging me, when are those going to be done? I really want them to be worn, but you know, the life of a knitter. You just kind of work on stuff. Oh, I forgot to say, so I'm housing this in my Free All the House Elves bags. This is a bag by QBS Not For Profit, Denise. One thing I love, so this was a custom bag that she made for me. I told her I wanted orange with a blue zipper, and it's the perfect sock size. She always includes stitch marker zipper pull. This one is breast cancer awareness, it's Hope. But she also has some Harry Potter themed stitch markers. I'll show you one of those here in a minute. But she makes great bags. I love this bag. I have 2 bags of hers, and I use them almost exclusively for my socks. The other one, unfortunately, got pixie sticks spilled in it, so it needs to be washed. But I'll get there. My next project is housed in a bag by Lila Styles. Yes, I know this is a Christmas bag, and we are in February, but it's Star Wars, and this is another project for my husband, and he loves Star Wars, so it's just kind of what he gets. So I am making for him the Flax Light sweater from Tin Can Knits. I am using Knit Picks Stroll Tweed in the Forest Heather colorway. This is a 65% superwash merino wool, 25% nylon, and 10% Donegal tweed. They come in 50-gram balls, about 231 yards. I ordered 10 of these for this sweater. I don't know that I will use them all, but I might. I am knitting the extra large for him, mostly because he wants it to be a little bit long, but he also wants it to be a little bit big on him, just so it's a little more comfortable to wear. And I decided to knit the Flax Light versus the Flax sweater because my husband runs very hot. He rarely wears coats, even when it's 30 degrees outside, which I think is crazy, but everyone on to their own, I guess. So yeah, he rarely wears coats. So I thought, well, if I'm gonna knit him a sweater, which he really wants, then I better knit the light version instead of a worsted weight version, just so that he'll actually wear it and be comfortable with it. So for this, I did a tubular cast on, which I'm not sure how I really feel about. It's kind of wonky. I'm hoping it'll block. Also, notice I dropped a stitch right here, so got a little stitch marker on there to hold it in place. I mean, it'll probably block fine, but I don't know. There was another method of tubular cast on that I used the first time I cast this on, and I liked it much better, but I don't know. We'll see. We'll see when I get farther. Obviously, I'm still kind of just at the beginning. So I'm finished with the raglan increases for the sleeves. I have about 2 rows left, and then I will divide for the sleeves. But yeah, that's it so far. I am doing the garter panel down the sleeve. He did say he wanted that. Notice I have a little mistake, but I am consistent, so the mistake is on both sides in the same spot. So now the decision is, do I make it look like I did that on purpose? So I did, you can see right here, I did, instead of doing a purl row, I did 2 knit rows, and then I did my purl, and then a knit, and then a purl, and then I did 2 knit rows. So, I did do it on both sides. It is in the same spot on both sides. So again, at least I'm consistent. So now I'm trying to decide, okay, I have about the right number of garter stitch rows here that I've done correctly. Do I add in that weird little pattern to make it look like it's supposed to be that way? Or because this mess up is going to be still kind of on the top of the shoulder, no one's probably going to notice it? I don't know. We'll see what I decide. I have a couple more I think I have 2 more garter stitch rows before I make that decision. So that's his. I am knitting this on US size 6. Oh, that's another problem I have right now. So I'm knitting these on a US size 6. These are Knitter's Pride size 6, which I quite like, but I had this on a much shorter cable, which I was really enjoying, and then my cable broke last night. So then now it's on this really long cable, and I'm about to take off almost a third of the stitches. Not sure how I feel about that. So I probably will enable myself a little bit and order some new needles. But yeah, I'm housing that in my Lila Styles bag. I keep the sweater, all of my notions, and then and the pattern and 1 extra skein of the yarn in there at a time. And it fits perfectly. I actually still have, you can see, I still have quite a bit of space in the top if I wanted to keep more in there. Okay. All right, my last work in progress that I have to show you is another pair of socks. I'm making the Resfeber socks. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. It's patterned by Mina Phillips. It's part of her Wanderlust sock collection that she's doing. It's a 6-month semi-mystery knit along. You get a sock pattern every other month, and then you can submit them in 2-month increments for the whole year. I am doing both of her clubs this year. The other one is the Cozy Sock Club. I'll look that up. But again, you get a pattern every 2 months. So the Wanderlust Club is on the odd months. So January, March, May, and so on. And then the Cozy Sock Club is the in-between months from that. So February, April, so even months. I know you can still get in on the mystery part of it. She releases, again, 1 pattern a month. So I know you can still get in on that. I am not sure the price on that. If I find it, I will put it in again. I just started these, and I told my husband, I said, hey, I need something other than green. I just knit a green shawl, and both of your projects are green because that's what you want, and I need a little more color in my life, because don't we all? So anyway, this is the other thing I have decided to do this year. I am knitting all of the Hippo colorways from lolodidit. So this is her Hippo for New Year's 2018. So it is the Naked Hippo color, and then it has pops of purple and orange and yellow and some pinks. But it is super fun and beautiful, and I have this in 2 cakes. I'm going to knit these 2 at a time. Again, I have just started these, so I'm not even done with my toes. Well, let's see if I don't have quite enough. So they're still very small. Let's put this up here. Kind of mustache sized. But I cast on 12 for my toe using Judy's Magic Cast On, and then I'm just doing an increase every other row until I get to 64 stitches on those. I am knitting these on a US 1.5, which is a 2.5 millimeter needle. I have, through my lots of socks last year, I ended up making 9.5 pairs for myself, and here's why. I got through 8 pairs, actually 8.5 pairs of socks, and then I started wearing them because I couldn't wait anymore. And I realized as I was wearing them that they were too big for my feet. So I had been using US size 2, which is a 2.75 millimeter needle, casting on 60 stitches. And when I try them on, they feel fine. But when I start wearing them and walking in them, they shift on my feet and it hurts and it's very uncomfortable. So, so I made it through half of my birthday socks for last year, and then had this realization that all of my socks were too big. So then I kind of gave up, thus 9.5 socks. So my 9th sock was a test knit for the wonderful Sarah Stevens of the Graceland Wool podcast. She has not released the pattern yet, so I can't show those. I absolutely love the socks though. Anyway, but I put those socks on and I was like, gosh, these are going to be too tight. I don't think they'll fit. This is such a different gauge than I've been getting. I was right on gauge for the pattern, but I put them on and perfect. Those were the US 1.5, and so now we're going to try that. I'm still kind of trying to figure out my perfect sock pattern. My husband's socks that I showed you earlier, I have tried them on his feet probably 10 times already, and I'm just barely past the heel. Just to make sure I was getting a proper fit for his foot. Because after I started knitting these, that's one of the things he said was, hey, could you make my socks a little shorter? I feel like they're too long for my feet and they slide on my feet. Well, sure. I'm happy to try anything. I also just recently purchased, just before Christmas, sock architecture. So I've been kind of going through that, and I'm going to try some of the different heels and constructions in that book to, again, really nail down my perfect vanilla sock pattern. All right, moving on to Scrappy Projects. So I have currently 2 Scrappy Projects. I have one more that I will be, actually I have several more that I'll be starting to, that I can think of off the top of my head. I'll talk about those in a minute. So the first is my Cozy Memories blanket. So I am doing mine kind of corner to corner style, and I did really well until about May of last year, making sure that I got all of my projects in, which I decided to start this because I spun my first hand spun yarn, which is this block, and it is a little wonky sized for everything else. But I didn't have enough to really do much else with it. So I created the first block and thought, you know what, I'm just going to keep going. So then I have, this was the same colorway I knit my very first pair of socks out. I knit another pair of socks for my husband out of this. My January socks, I knit a gradient cowl out of this set here. Then I have my February socks, hold on. This was my daughter's stuffy and also a pair of socks that I knit for her, my March socks. This was a shawl. I did a Girl from the Grocery Store shawl last year, so that's from that shawl. April socks, heels, toes, and cuffs. And this one, that was an Afterthought Everything sock that I did that I absolutely love. Then I used this one, and this one for another MCAL. It was the Snowmelt Shawl by Helen Stewart. May socks, super bright and fun. Then I have this one and this one are both Felici colorways. I knit my niece's socks for Christmas. They are very knit-worthy. They never take them off is what I've been told. So then I have heels, toes, and cuffs for July and August, which I can't find my July yarn, so I can't put it in my blanket. Still working on that. August socks, these are socks that I knit my mom. First pair of socks I've ever knit my mom. There. And then these were my June socks. So that's kind of where I'm at. I am still working on 2017 things. I think I have 4 or 5 skeins or balls of things that I made last year that I need to put in. So as soon as 2017 gets caught up, then I can start on 2018. I am trying to participate in Scrappy Sunday, which Kay from the Crazy Sock Lady podcast talks about a lot, that she kind of dedicates Sundays to work on her scrappy projects so that they don't just keep getting pushed behind or pushed back. I feel that mine are kind of the same way. So I keep getting all of these other projects and forgetting to put more things in. My other scrappy project is a crochet blanket, corner to corner blanket. I am using I forgot to say, on my Cozy Memories, I am using a US size 2, which is a 2.75 millimeter needle. I just have I have some long double points. I think they're 9-inch or 10-inch double points that I bought when I very, very first started knitting. And I'm just using those for now. Sorry. Okay, so my second Scrappy project is a corner to corner blanket for my daughter. This is going to be her graduation present. I realize she's 6. She's in 1st grade, so I have 12 years. But it's fun because I'm putting in yarn from every project I've ever made her. So for example, this first section is the first pair of socks I ever made her. This is the second pair of socks I ever made her, which were knee-high lace socks. She calls them her ballet socks, and she loves them. She still wears them, even though they don't really fit anymore. And then I have this neon color. This was her stuffed hippo that I made her, and also a pair of socks. She actually I don't know what color this is anymore. I cannot find the ball band. But she actually calls this Rosy Skin because her hippo's name is Rosie. So next is to add Rosy Skin to it. And then my other plans for Scrappy Projects are I'm going to start a graduation project for my son. I don't have quite as long for him since he is in 3rd grade, but so several years ago, 2 years ago I think, I knit him a pair of socks out of this yarn. This is another Wool Ease wool-free sock. I do not know the colorway, but that will be the first yarn in his. And then I have knit him a pair of socks, and he would like me to knit him a sock head hat out of this neon green blue chartreuse kind of color. And then I talked earlier in the episode that I have been given a whole bunch of yarn. Most of the yarn I have been given is Red Heart, and although Red Heart I feel like has its place, I usually use it if I'm knitting like things for babies that need to be easily washable, big blankets, donations, charity things. I tend to use Red Heart just because I know that whoever gets it is not going to have to worry about how to care for it. So I have been given probably 50 or 60 skeins of Red Heart yarn in the last month. And what I have decided to do with those, some of them I am going to donate. One of probably the local yarn shop that I go to the most, it's called Knit and Pretty, it's in West Jordan. They actually take donations for a program that the women's prison has where they are taught to knit, and then they are able to knit things for charity kind of in their downtime. So I will probably donate some of it to that, and then the rest of it, I decided what I was going to do was make camping blankets and car blankets for my family, just probably just a granny stripe blanket or a corner to corner. But I feel like my kids are always cold in the winter. They always want a blanket. They fight if I have a big blanket in the back seat that they can share. They always fight over it. So I thought, well, if I just make a couple of lap blankets, they can stay in my trunk. If the kids are cold, we can just pull them out. They each have their own blanket in the back of the car. I will make 2 for my car, 2 for my husband's car, and then just have a couple of camp blankets. Again, it's Red Heart. It's easy to wash. I think it will be a great way to use some of this yarn that's been gifted to me. Other knitting goals that I have kind of for this year, as I mentioned, I knit my first garment last year. It needs some serious work. I hopefully will bring it on the show probably next episode and let you see kind of the fix that I need to make. I pretty much have just shoved it in a corner for right now because I am struggling with it. But really I need to just pull it out and fix it. It's not that hard. I've looked it up. But anyway, I'll pull it out. Maybe I'll do a video on how I intend to fix it and what the result is and insert that. We'll see. Anyway, so I would like to knit more garments. I really enjoyed knitting that garment, and the final product I love, except for the one problem I have with it. So I have decided I want to knit at least 4 garments this year, 1 for each member of my family. And then I would like to do a shawl design. I have this design kind of floating around in my head that I would like to do for my mom for Mother's Day, or, you know, probably Mother's Day. I was going to try and get it done for her birthday, but that's not going to happen. Her birthday is in the first part of March. But Mother's Day's not till May, so I have more time. I already have the yarn. One of the 3 skeins is already caked up even. I really just need to figure out exactly how the pattern's gonna look. I think I might knit a mini shawl version of it, like a doll size shawl, just to make sure that the pattern's gonna look and fit the way I want. And also that way I'm not using up 3 full skeins of yarn for what is in my brain that I'm trying to create. Let's see, other goals that I have. Sorry, just looking at my notes really quick because I wrote them all down so I wouldn't forget. So 4 sweaters, 1 shawl design. Oh, I want to have all of my yarn in spreadsheet format. I know Ravelry is really great for that, but I'm a spreadsheet person. I love spreadsheets. So I currently have all my projects on spreadsheets, and it breaks down like how much yardage I use. I'm actually using the one that Mina Phillip shared, I believe it was last January, on her podcast. You can still get it if you go to her website. But she has a yarn tracking spreadsheet and then a project tracking spreadsheet. So I have downloaded both of those and then kind of modified them to fit me and my style. So maybe one day I'll show that to you. I don't know. We'll see. And then I want to make sure that I am participating more in Ravelry and getting to know more people in the knitting community. I am kind of a lone knitter. I do have a couple of friends who crochet, but they do not understand the craziness that is the knit life. They do not understand. So anyway, I want to make sure that I get all of my projects in Ravelry, that I have notes, start and finish dates. So I have them on my project spreadsheet, but I also want to make sure that I get them in Ravelry and get photos in Ravelry to make sure that I don't forget anything. Because I feel like last year I got to a point where I got kind of overwhelmed with the way I was trying to do things. And I got super overwhelmed with all of the projects I was trying to do because, trust me, I cast on all the things, all the time. For me, who had knit monogamously one project, you start it, you finish it, then you start the next one. Last year I had 4 or 5 whips going constantly, and it got super overwhelming. And then the Cozy Memories blanket and all of these things got super overwhelming for me. And I got to a point where I just couldn't track everything anymore, and I was really struggling. So I'm hoping this year I'm a little more organized. I'm in a better place mentally than I was last year, and I'm hoping that through kind of this record, but also being able to post it in Ravelry and on Instagram and things like that, I'm just trying to be more involved. I need a knit community. I need one. I'm pretty busy after school, so even my local yarn shop, they have a knit night once a month or once a week, and I have been once in December. My goal is to get there twice a month. We'll see. I'm gonna try. We'll see. Anyway, and then my last goal for this year is to clear up all of my languishing whips or projects. So I really only have one languishing whip that's something I've actually started. It is a chevron scarf. It's a crochet project for my son that I started last January. It's about half done, almost half done. But I just don't pull it out and work on it. I like that Honeybee Knits, Melissa, is doing a Whip It Thursday. So now I have 2 days of the week. Okay, Thursdays I'm going to work on whips. Sundays I work on my Scrappy projects, so that they don't become so overwhelming. But then I have a couple of projects that I have promised people, and I just keep pushing them off. So for example, my really good friend, I promised I would make her daughter a mermaid blanket. I made her a mermaid blanket and her other daughter a mermaid blanket. And last April, for the oldest's birthday, I was supposed to make a mermaid blanket. and I epically failed. And it's still not even started. I do have all the yarn. Because of course I went and bought the yarn. And then I have slippers for myself, my friend, my 2 children that I have promised to make. And I have another pair of socks. In fact, this is the yarn for the other promised pair of socks. It's caked up. I caked it up in the beginning of January and just haven't cast them on yet. So this is another lolodidit. This is the Go Hawks colorway. She is a big Seahawks fan. So I'm hoping to have this and her slippers done for her birthday, but probably not because her birthday is in like 2 weeks and I'm a horrible friend. I really am. No, I just get sidetracked with all the things. That's the problem. So that's kind of my goals for this year. I do still want to be knitting a pair of socks a month. I did join both those sock clubs so that I could still knit myself a pair of socks a month. Again, not doing so well. My January socks are this big. But I hope to have those done before the end of February. And my cozy, the first pattern in the Cozy Sock Club done, as well as the next pattern in the Wanderlust done, hopefully by the end of Alright, now we have a special segment, Knitting with Kids. This is my daughter Kit Kat, she is 6, and my son Dima, who is 8. Can you look at the camera, Dima? Say hi.
Hi. Hi.
Hey, both of them have knitting projects that they are working on over the past 6 months to a year. They have asked me to help them knit because it's something that I do all the time. So we're going to kind of look at the projects that they are working on, and then they'll make regular appearances so you can see their progress too. So should we start with Kit Kat?
Yeah.
Okay, which one do you want to share first? This one? Okay. So let me see. Okay, so this is her first project. And Kit Kat, what is this?
It is a rag.
Okay, sit down.
It's a rag and
A washcloth, like a dish rag.
And it's a washcloth.
Okay.
And
so
I just finished my first row. Well, not my first. One of my rows, and it's kind of rainbow, as you can see. And before the podcast, I finished this row.
This row right here.
Mhm.
So we cast on 50 stitches, and I did the very first row, and she has done every row since then. She is knitting American style. We are using a Hobby Lobby rainbow cotton yarn that she picked out. I apologize, I cannot remember the brand. I will make sure that I put it in the show notes though, and the colorway as well. And then we are knitting these on boy size 8 5mm needles, just some straights that I had.
Now can we get to this one?
Yep. Okay, her second project is on a loom. We're just using one side of this loom here. This is a loom that my brother-in-law actually made when he was knitting and then gifted to me. So this is what it looks like so far. Okay, Kit Kat, why don't you tell them what you're making?
I am making a blanket for my dolls.
And this is the yarn that she's using. It's some Bernat blanket yarn. And what is this yarn left over from?
It's left over from my mermaid blanket that my mom made.
All right, Dima.
And I am making a Bronco hat.
May I borrow it so I can show them? So he's on a circular loom. This is another one that was made by my brother-in-law. Let's see if I can get that to focus there. and he is using some Patton's Classic Wool Worsted in the navy blue color. And you're doing a Broncos hat?
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to add some orange at some point.
Yeah.
What kind of hat are you going to make? Do you want to make one that's tight on your head, or are you going to make it kind of slouchy so it's a little big?
I'm gonna make it slouchy.
Slouchy. Okay. Anything else you want to say about your project?
Nope.
Nope. All right. Well, I guess that does it, and they'll keep working, and we will show you again at another time. I'm going to go ahead and sign off, and I wish you all happy knitting and hope that you enjoy the rest of your week. See you later.